Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Yes, ma'am. With respect to the U.S., uh, we have several exercises. Balikatan is one. We have other service-to-service engagements as well, like Sama-Sama and Kamandag of the Marines. But for maritime cooperative activities, we started late last year, and we had so far, I think, the 4 maritime cooperative activities already with the U.S. and other like-minded countries.
For Balikatan, Your Honor, there was 17,000 who have since departed,
Yes.
and it rotates, ma'am,
That's
depending on the
2023 or 2024?
23, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think we have all the relevant agencies well represented, and the public hearing of the Committee on Foreign Relations is hereby called to order. We acknowledge the presence of our Majority Leader, Senator Francis Escudero. And oo nga, ano ba? Wala. Wala na. Antok na ako. Majority Leader Francis Tolentino. And the chairperson therefore declares a quorum, and we now call on Attorney Dana Alberto, Legislative Committee Secretary, to acknowledge the presence of our resource person.
Good afternoon. The Committee on Foreign Relations would like to acknowledge the presence of our distinguished guests, namely, from the Department of National Defense, we have Secretary Gilberto C. Teodoro Jr., Undersecretary Pablo M. Lorenzo, Assistant Secretary Marita Ayoro, Assistant Secretary Eric Lawrence S.D. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, we have Assistant Secretary Eileen S. Mendiola Rao, Assistant Secretary Patrick A. Chua Soto. From Bureau of Customs, we have Attorney John Cedric Comon. Department of Finance, we have Attorney Edgar Siriban. From the Department of Justice, we have State Counsel Ulysses A. Aguila. From the Presidential Commission on Visiting Forces, we have Undersecretary Antonio Atanasio A. Habulan. From Professional Regulation Commission, we have Director Melissa Jane Comafay Yachana. And online via Zoom, we have Brigadier General Romel R. Cordova. That will be all, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, I don't see Apo Cordova. Can we request technical to show? Ayan, there we go. Okay, maraming salamat. And I'd like to announce the agenda. We call this meeting for the purpose of the Senate's concurrence to the ratification of the agreement between the Republic of the Philippines and Japan concerning the facilitation of reciprocal access and cooperation between the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Self-Defense Forces of Japan, or the RAA. The RAA was signed July 8, 2024 in Manila, transmitted to the Senate last November 11, 2024, referred to this committee November 12, 2024. The purpose of the RAA is to deepen defense cooperation between the Philippines and Japan, and thus enhance the interoperability between the Armed Forces of the Philippines and Japan's self-defense forces, guided by the following 4 principles: global and regional peace and stability, capacity building, maritime security, and external defense. It is expected under the RAA that the Philippines and Japan will undertake more in-depth practical military cooperation and exercise, and these will cover defense cooperation activities and exercises that aim to respond to the current security landscape, such as, but not limited to, the enhancement of technical and cybersecurity needs, development of maritime domain awareness capabilities, expanding training and education exchanges, and the strengthening of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. The RAA gives recognition to the promotion of an international order based on the rule of law, given the shared interest of the Philippines and Japan to global and regional peace and stability. It is submitted to this committee that the benefits of the RAA for the Filipino people are the opening of new opportunities to bolster national security from both traditional and non-traditional aspects, and developing partnerships with like-minded and highly capable nations such as Japan in multiple sectors would positively ensure that national security is maintained and enhanced. let us hear from the resource persons to aid this committee to better understand the pros and cons of the treaty subject of this public hearing. And may I likewise request the resource persons of government to first expressly state whether they likewise concur to the ratification or they do not. May I also enjoin you to keep your presentations and your answers as short as possible, as we have session at 3 o'clock. Thank you. So I would also like to introduce at this juncture the opening statement from Senator Villanueva, a member of this committee, and he was among the legislators who awaited the submission of the RAA as we relayed to the Prime Minister Kishida Fumio during his visit in 2023 and Ambassador Endo Kazuya. He would like to put on record his strong support for the ratification of the RAA. This continues, and I enjoin the Secretary to insert the entirety of this opening statement into the record. Majority Leader, do you have any opening statement, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I likewise associate myself with the opening statement of Senator Villanueva. I'll be submitting for insertion to the records a lengthy statement supporting this initiative. It is our constitutional duty to really vet this agreement, and I would have wanted in hindsight to have items such as support for fisheries technology be included among others for Filipino fisher folks, considering the advanced stage of fisheries, the technology being employed by Japanese fisher folks, fishing industry. So, Madam Chair, I am in full support likewise, but as part of our constitutional duty, we have to really vet this agreement to enable us to really see the ramifications of this. But I am in support of this likewise. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much to our good Majority Leader. And perhaps at this juncture, I'd like to ask, the lead agency is the Department of National Defense, I understand. And the Secretary, would you like to make some opening statements, or do we dispatch the media at this juncture?
Ma'am, as part of the opening statement, I think it's fine. They may.
Yes. May I urge the media, please?
No, they can remain.
They can remain.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's part of
there
the
we go.
opening statement.
Sorry. Thank you.
Madam Chair, distinguished Majority Leader, it is our honor to appear before your committee for the purpose of the process of ratification of the Reciprocal Access Agreement between Japan and the Philippines, which was signed July 8th of this year. We view this agreement as part and parcel of our strategic partnership with Japan, and as a logical conclusion to the development of interoperability between the Japan Self-Defense Force, the Philippine Armed Force, in pursuance of mutual training, exchange of technologies, and other enhancement activities which are of benefit to both parties. As we know, Japan is also a supplier of domain awareness capabilities to the Philippines. It also is disallowed from engaging in offensive military activities, just like the Philippine Armed Forces. It is a heavy contributor in to humanitarian assistance and disaster response, and as well as resilience insofar as our communities is concerned. So therefore, it was deemed proper that defense and security cooperation and a reciprocal access agreement be entered into so that our personnel can train side by side and exercise scenarios side by side. In the aim of increasing trust and confidence amongst each other. The RAA has a total of 29 articles. It contains the definitions of terms, its purposes, which are clearly stated, and it contains a distinct article on respect for laws and regulations of the receiving state. And none of the articles in the RAA shall be construed to mean an amendment of any domestic law or much less a constitutional provision. Article 4 states clearly that it is not a military basing agreement, which is prohibited under our laws. Another article is determinative of weapons, explosives, ammunition, and dangerous goods, and its proper handling, entry, handling, and disposition. Article 20 is a new article which was insisted on by the Philippine side and acceded to by Japan, which mandates environmental protection and respect for cultural and indigenous people's rights. Article 21 includes the command and control and disposition of criminal and disciplinary cases. These are supplemented by an annex and agreed minutes. The RAA is also patterned after the Australia-Japan Reciprocal Access Agreement and the United Kingdom and Japan, if I'm not mistaken, UK, United Kingdom and Japan RAA. The conclusion of this RAA was a result of continuous interagency consultations with the agencies present before the Honorable Chair. And it is our aim to have this agreement in consonance with other reciprocal access and visiting forces agreements in order also to buttress, once again, interoperability and enforcement of international rules and regulations and international law. It is hoped by this humble resource person that the Honorable Senate shall ratify the agreement in the soonest possible time so that the mechanisms under the same may be drawn up subject to the guidance and oversight, naturally, of the Visiting Forces Agreement and the Senate. We humbly submit, Your Honors. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Secretary Teodoro. I have the privilege of joining the Senate visit to Japan November 3 to 4 in 2023. And it became clear that we were, in fact, the very first recipient of the defense assistance from Japan through the donation of a brand new coastal radar system worth 600 million yen or 235.5 million pesos to be used by the Navy. And previous to that, as the Secretary mentioned, Mitsubishi, in fact, sold 4 radars to the Philippine Air Force, and they are since been installed in La Union, I take it. So that, therefore, this has already been in the offing. If you'd like to make a presentation beyond that, is there any other agency that needs to add remarks? DFA, please. Yes, ASEC Mendiola Rao.
With your permission, Madam Chair, Honorable Majority Leader, first of all, I'd like to manifest that the Secretary of Foreign Affairs is unable to attend the meeting today because he's now in Rome to attend the G7 meeting, the first time actually that we've been invited. With that, if I may read the statement that the DFA has prepared for this hearing, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
please go ahead.
Thank you. It has been incumbent upon the Department of Foreign Affairs to build partnerships with like-minded states, including Japan, on the basis of our national interests, shared values, and shared vision for the future of the region and of the world. Since 1956, the Philippines and Japan have worked to build a solid foundation for a forward-looking relationship, evolving to what is now one of the region's closest partnerships. This year, the Philippines and Japan mark 68 years of normalized relations, 13 years of strategic partnership, and 9 years of strengthened strategic partnership.
Our strengthened strategic partnership is one that is rooted in our unwavering commitment to shared universal values such as freedom, democracy, the rule of law, respect for human rights, and a free and open economy. The Philippines' multifaceted engagements with Japan, particularly in the economic field, demonstrate the continuation of our strong economic and development cooperation. Japan is consistently the Philippines' top partner in terms of bilateral official development assistance or ODA, with aid amounting to more than 12 billion US dollars last year, encompassing projects in infrastructure development, disaster risk mitigation, food security, education, health, maritime safety, and peace and development in Mindanao. We are also looking forward to cooperation projects related to the fields of environment and climate change in the coming year. These projects promote competitiveness and create tangible benefits, increasing jobs and helping uplift the lives of Filipinos. In the face of the changing regional security landscape, Japan has consistently supported the Philippines' assertion of sovereignty and sovereign rights, particularly in the West Philippine Sea. Our bilateral relations have become an important aspect of regional stability in the Indo-Pacific. The signing of the Reciprocal Access Agreement is an important milestone in the security cooperation between the Philippines and Japan amidst an increasingly complex regional security environment. This security cooperation will further promote and enhance economic cooperation. The Reciprocal Access Agreement provides a legal and administrative framework for the entry into and departure of the Defense Forces vessels, aircraft, and equipment of a party to the territory of the other party for the purposes of training and the conduct of mutually agreed upon by parties. To note, the Japan Self-Defense Forces or JSDF have been participating in humanitarian assistance and disaster response activities in the Philippines in the past. The RAA becomes a natural progression of the cooperation between the Philippine Armed Forces and the JSDF from HADR to other aspects of capability and capacity building. As the security environment in the region becomes increasingly challenging, this important security-related agreement will further promote bilateral security and defense cooperation between the Philippines and Japan and will firmly contribute to initiatives towards a stable and peaceful Indo-Pacific. With the foregoing, the Department of Foreign Affairs fully supports the Department of National Defense and the Armed Forces of the Philippines in seeking the Senate's concurrence for the Reciprocal Access Agreement. We humbly submit, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asik Rao. And if there are no further opening statements, I'd like to begin the interpellation. Okay, perhaps the DOJ and the other lawyers here can help us. Without an RAA with Japan, would it not be legally tenable to hold joint military exercises?
Madam Chair.
Kung walang RAA, would it not be legally tenable to hold joint military exercises? Di ba nag-umpisa na naman tayo even without the RAA?
No, ma'am. Only maritime cooperative activities.
So they're considered maritime cooperative.
Yes, and they're not within the land territory of the Philippines, and they're outside the territorial waters. If at all, they are conducted in areas where there is right of passage.
So they are outside of the territorial waters as well.
Yes, ma'am. Outside the 12 nautical mile limit.
Yes.
The MCAs are conducted there.
Okay, so that therefore this is absolutely necessary as the Secretary sees it.
Insofar as we're concerned, yes, ma'am.
Yes, so that this is a legal requirement to conduct joint military exercises. To get a concept or an idea of the scale, this is the third RAA that we embark upon, the previous one obviously being with the United States and with Australia. How many cooperative activities did we undertake in 2023 with the US? Just a ballpark figure. I know there are quite a few, and we don't need an absolute number.
Under Balikatan, ma'am, there is Balikatan as the and there are several iterations under the same. The J5 may have the data. Romel, J5.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes,
Hello,
you
sir. Good afternoon.
recognize.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Yes, ma'am. With respect to the US, we have several exercises. Balikatan is one. We have other service-to-service engagements as well, like Sama-Sama and kamandag of the Marines. But for maritime cooperative activities, we started late last year, and we had so far, I think, the 4 maritime cooperative activities already with the US and other like-minded countries.
Only 4, or Balikatan surely
Ma'am,
had many more?
no, there are 400 total,
Oh,
depending
400,
on
there we
size,
go.
Balikatan being the biggest.
Okay.
But there are 4 either here or abroad.
Okay. And then what's the total number of the US personnel that entered the Philippines, 2023 and 2024, just to allow the public some sense of scale of this arrangement?
For Balikatan, Your Honor, there was 17,000 who have since departed.
Yes.
And it rotates, ma'am,
That's
depending on the
2023 or 2024.
23, ma'am.
And then this year, do we have another 400 Balikatan and other iterations as mentioned by the Secretary? 2024, ganon din, 400 din?
2024 is also close to the number of
Okay.
15,000.
Sorry,
Close to 15,000, around that number.
16,000.
15.
18.
15, 15, ma'am.
15. Okay, paano and how many exercises, roughly?
There were, I think, 7 major exercises at a minimum, but there are more than 500 activities program,
Okay,
but around 400 were executed.
okay. So these were, what about the activities between the Philippines and the US in US territories in 2023? Yung nabanggit rin ni SND.
Uli.
I think there were a series of training.
Yes, ma'am, there were.
Conducted.
We'll submit the
Sige.
data, ma'am. Yeah.
If we could just have an idea of the scope and scale, 2023, 2024. And
Yes,
then at the same time,
And there was one exercise called RIMPAC, ma'am, in the States where one vessel was set.
Green Pack.
Yes, ma'am, RIMPAC. Plus, with the Australia, we had the exercise Pitch Black this year where we sent us no, ma'am. These were FA-50 fighters.
Yeah. How many activities did we undertake roughly in the last 2 years?
Major exercise, ma'am, is exercise Alon, which happened in I think last year in San Antonio, Zambales, and then Pitch Black in Australia, and several training, Your Honor.
Yes, if we could just have a quick summary of that.
We will, Your Honor, we'll comply.
Thank you. Were there cooperative activities in Australian territory in 2023 and 2024?
Pitch Black, ma'am.
Pitch Black, that's
Yeah,
the one that you
and,
mentioned earlier. Sorry.
And the Karabaru trilateral exercise.
And how many Australian personnel came over to the Philippines, and how many Filipinos went over to Australia?
Pitch Black, ma'am, I know the Filipinos that went to Australia about 250 to 300 because the FA-50s were supported by C-130s to transport them there, and a lot of ground personnel were there. Now Australians coming in 1,500 Australians, ma'am, for Alon.
And 1,500 Australians.
Yeah, for
Okay.
Alon here.
Okay, for Alon. So, given that we've had these 2 experiences with 2 other allies in the past, how many cooperative activities are we expecting with Japan in the near future on an annual basis? And what sort of activities do we anticipate?
Right now, ma'am, that's still to be determined because we still have to determine the scheduling between both parties and the absorptive capacity given the availability of troops. However, assuming the RAA is approved, then it makes way for Japan to be involved in Balikatan and in Alon and other exercises with Australia and the United States.
Would that be as a third partner or a fourth partner rather than as a joint partner only with the Philippines?
Ma'am, I think with the Philippines, with Japan, we will determine the amount of bilateral activities and multilateral that are mutually agreed upon between Japan and the Philippines. But with Balikatan alone, that will also depend on the agreement of the United States.
Wala pa.
Wala pa, ma'am.
So in the next 5 years, we have any idea how many Japanese military will be coming to the Philippines and how many Filipinos will be going over for training, schooling, etc. in Japan? Wala rin pa.
Wala
Kasi
pa rin,
wala
ma'am.
pang activity.
Wala pa, ma'am. Ang alam lang natin that they're on standby for greater participation sa HADR pagka nasa lanta tayo, ma'am.
All right, Senator Tolentino, please.
Sir, just one interjection. During your opening statement, you mentioned something about interoperability. How would this existing agreements we have right now, excluding this agreement that we're about to ratify, coexist and be read together? Would it pave the way? Would it open the door for other future agreements to come into play, or should this be treated as a standalone that can be linked together, or are we now providing for a more universal interoperability of all existing and future agreements that we may enter into?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. I think insofar as these agreements are concerned, these are standalone based on also the determination of the Philippines in terms of interoperability within its territory. However, since there need to be commonality in command and control, it is best that they jointly exercise for command and control purposes also. Interlinking of systems and other synergy measures. However, the ultimate is we determine whether it is beneficial for the Philippines to have combined exercises or not. So the initial is bilateral, then it may open the way for combined control, but we always, of course, retain the default.
So in all of the agreements, with the permission of the chair, and future agreements, perhaps if we're going to have an agreement with France or Germany, the same setup would be maintained. The Philippines would be at the fulcrum of all activities, and the bilateral partners would really be not subservient, would really be subject to whatever agreement that we may enter into. Thank you for that clarification, Secretary.
Yes, thank you. Several meetings we've had with our Japanese counterparts have always underlined the fact that in 2014, the Japanese government approved a reinterpretation of Article 9 of their constitution, and that it would allow Japan the right of collective self-defense in some instances and to engage military action if one of its allies was to be attacked. Hence, counter-strike capabilities are now being highlighted, and anticipated deterrence or collective deterrence have now become the key words. Articles in the press have indicated that the RAA that we are to ratify would potentially allow Tokyo to take part in initiatives under the Philippines-US EDCA agreement, should Manila and Washington agree to it. At this point, I think I really need to tell the media to leave the room so that we can discuss all these subjects more freely. Pakiusap lang, okay lang.